So in order to be able to have a long term, you have to be successful in the short term, right? With boards scrutinizing CEO performance and investor activists and analysts. So on top of every business, the question then is, how do you do that,
Right.
and at what cost? Because you can exhaust your organization. You can build a house of cards. We know so many CEOs that are successful in the short term at the expense of cutting marketing, cutting infrastructure, cutting investments in IT, and knowing that at some point the house of cards is going to dismantle. That's unacceptable. So what I would like to see more often than not, it's boards that are diligent about understanding long-term implications of short-term actions by leadership and by CEOs.
Yeah, and with board searches we do, we've seen some change in that regard where the board does give a vote of confidence, if you will, to the CEO and the management team to go long term. But there is a lot of pressure there, and when we're placing people, we see that some are good, as you were implying. Some are good at growing a startup, but they can't, or starting a startup, but they can't scale it. Some are good at the vice versa. Some are just good at different stages of business. And one thing I wanted to ask you, John, related to that, an outplacement, is how does management put a positive spin and keep the business going while they're outplacing certain executives for all those various reasons? They don't think that they're doing a good job for the long term, or they're not doing enough for the short term. And at the same time as they're letting these people go, and also generally with big contract payouts to let them go, even if they didn't succeed, how do they keep it positive for the people that are staying there?
Well, those are always crucial times in a company's growth and development. They have to find a way to make that transition in leadership in a way that reassures the people who were the friends and colleagues and maybe have depended on the people who are leaving, that they're going to be okay. So often not letting those periods of change roll out and leave the organization in limbo for a long period of time is very important. Otherwise, everybody lives under that cloud. So getting it done so that you can go to the next leadership team and say, the new leadership team, and say, we've made our changes. You're now where we're heading. This is done. You can reassure your people this is done, and let's move forward. Now, you can't always do that. I mean, conditions can continue to worsen in tough times and recessions. So you see sometimes that companies do have to go through multiple downshifts. But often it's more, again, dependent upon, crucial to have top leaders who can go to their people and reassure them that the new direction of the company is going to be consistent, the strategy is going to be firm, and they'll move forward on executing against it.
Predicting the future a little bit here, I heard the other day that they're saying, Anna, that the future might be not people having 5 jobs in their career anymore, but 25 jobs in their career, or maybe even 30. And now competition for talent is basically global for a lot of companies. What's your prediction for the future?
Well, I don't know about 25, but let me tell you what I see right now. And we have a number of factors converging to really transform the workforce at the top in the marketplace. First of all, we have baby boomers and Gen Xers who were about to retire in 2008, 2009, and suddenly realized they couldn't because of the global financial crisis. So they decided to stay a little bit longer until things stabilized and their retirement plans held water again. And that time is now. So we're going to see baby boomers and Gen Xers exiting the marketplace in droves. The second thing that happened was that there was a significant reduction in investments for leadership development since 2008, and companies now are realizing the implications of cutting down on those investments. But we also had younger people being promoted at least 6 years earlier than they would have been promoted 20 years ago. Then you add to that a new generation that is hungry, that is very mobile and very global, and the old timers would say very disloyal. It's not that they are disloyal. When they are engaged, they are 150% engaged. But if you don't know how to engage them, they will not hesitate and look for the next challenge and the next opportunity. So what that creates is a marketplace that is 20 times more complex and fluid than the marketplace was 10 years ago. And that is quite interesting. So I think we're going to see a lot of shifting and shaking and moving around. And yes, we're going to see more than 5 jobs in a lifetime. I don't know that 25, unless people are working for 1 million years, but certainly more moving around than we saw in our generation.
So, John, do you agree with that? And also, are you seeing a lot of we would call them more seasoned people, or baby boomers, or more seasoned people continuing to work longer too, and maybe management taking advantage of their wisdom?
Yeah, well, no question, not just their wisdom, just their know-how. So what we see is that young people, when you're in your 20s, you haven't begun to settle down. We do see people taking way more jobs than, say, a generation ago. So someone might have 3 or 4 jobs and 3 or even that many companies that they work for, if not more, in that first period. But then as they begin to move into midlife, they settle down, the tenures become longer, and then you get that back end, as you're talking about, the idea that retirement should end at 60 or 65, or start at 60 or 65, and that your working life stops, just is disappearing. And so more and more people are working into their 60s and 70s, maybe striking a different kind of balance between their personal life and their working life. And that certainly adds jobs on at the back end of their career. But I don't think it necessarily has to be you turn into a mentor or a teacher. Today, there's a lot more people at that age who just continue to work.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You're both terrific at developing relationships, and I talk a lot about this when I speak to younger, even people looking to get on boards who think they've developed relationships over their years, and they realize they don't. They have acquaintances because they were working. And can you give some advice to the up-and-coming leaders in terms of developing relationships, how important that is from even a local perspective to global perspective in their career, and for that matter, even in their life?
So
Anna?
my advice would be quality is better than quantity. So try to establish meaningful relationships. You're not going to establish that via Facebook or Instagram or group texting, right? You really have to put the time and the effort to sit with people, understand their motivations, give something before taking something to yourself. And that's essentially how you establish long-term relationships, connect people, try to leverage your database of connections to help others, and then something good's going to happen to you. I can guarantee that.
I see a lot of people who lose their jobs and regret that they have not taken the time to devote, maybe it's 5 or 10% of their week in and week out working life to building relationships, not just inside their company, but outside their company, peers in the same profession, people in their community, people, say the most influential people in their particular functional or industry area, and vow never to do that again. It's certainly another life pattern that a lot of people take the first half of their careers and they put their head down and they work really hard, harder than anybody else, and they're smart, so it makes them successful. And then they hit mid-career and they start to look up. And start to go much more external and meet people and work, make that a real intentional part of their work effort. So the younger you can start that process, recognize how important that is, the more successful you will be in making transitions. And again, we're in an era now where people don't make their make successful careers like, say, a generation ago by staying in the same company, at least not very often, and making your way up through that company's politics and the people involved that are there. You make your career, many people do, by making the most successful moves from company to company.
So I have one last question in this segment. I'll start with you, Anna. So if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you really like to do?
I'd like to be a singer.
Oh, you want to try us?
No, it's
this could be your debut.
Because I was raised to develop my left brain, right? And then suddenly there are all those things that you think, oh, maybe I could have done that. I could have, and one of them would be I'd probably be an artist of some sort.
Yes, you don't want to do your singing debut. Is that
Next
what you're
life.
Never too late. How about you,
Yeah,
John?
a whole range of hobbies that I wish I was really expert in. You know, playing guitar, playing golf, playing poker, learning how to paint, being a good photographer. All those I'd be happy, to spend much more time at.
See, John, when we retire, then you can play the guitar and I can sing. It's going to be a total disaster, but we'll have fun.
I always say I'm a good 33 handicap guitar player.
That's fantastic, and I might have just created a new band here, almost. Jeez. Well, I wanted to be a professional hockey player or a sports broadcaster, so now with doing these video interviews, I'm just hoping CNN or BBC or somebody calls me up and offers me a gig at the same time. So who knows? But listen, thank you so much for participating. It's been great insights. Hopefully we can do it again. There's so much to talk about, and I appreciate our relationship, and hopefully it goes on for a very long time. So
Likewise,
thank you both again.
Thank you, Mark and John.
So nice to be with you. That was fun.